The Aaron Hernandez murder trial. Attorneys for the former star player going after police for how investigators handled evidence at the crime scene. Hernandez looking on as an officer gets grilled.
To your knowledge, nobody documented the time that the casings, the towel, the blunt, and the hat were picked up, correct?
As far as I know I didn't. I'm not sure if one of the other detectives did or not.
And the former Patriots $40 million player is on trial for the murder of semi-pro football player Odin Lloyd back in 2013. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York. ABC legal analyst Ryan Smith watching this case for us. And Ryan, Aaron Hernandez's attorneys focusing on police saying that they mishandled this evidence at the scene.
Oh, and that's key, because what the defense wants to do here is they want to bring up reasonable doubt. One of the best ways to do that is to take issue with the way police handled the scene. Because if police didn't do something right on the scene, if they mishandled evidence, then how can you trust that evidence as a juror to lead to a conviction? So this is the place where you got to lay down the nuts and bolts of the case if you're the prosecution. We handled this scene correctly and we processed it right. And for the defense, it's all about trying to say, you didn't do your job right, your investigation was faulty, and if this investigation was faulty, perhaps my client is innocent.
And that's powerful, can be powerful, when this is a highly circumstantial case, correct?
Right. You don't have a gun. You don't have direct evidence pointing to Hernandez as the killer. You've got a lot of shady characters who might testify, or people who don't know a lot about the situation, who the prosecution is going to use to try to point the finger at Hernandez. So you've got a very big circumstantial case here. So if you can disprove the evidence, it helps your case in building doubt.
All right, let's get to the testimony a little bit. The mother of the victim, Odin Lloyd's mother, today. How did that go? And let's talk about yesterday and how this led into and the instruction that the judge gave her.
Well, her emotion in that courtroom is very powerful. One of the things that juries tell us a lot when we look at cases like this, they are so very affected by the family members and the people impacted by the victim's death. They get the sense that they are responsible. In some ways, they're stewards, responsible for considering this evidence deeply because someone has lost someone. So when she was on the stand and she was crying, getting emotional, that really impacts most juries. And I think what was interesting is seeing the judge tell her she can't do that. It goes
Is it rare for a judge to do that?
Well, no. It goes contrary to what people think. They think, well, you got to let her let it out. But the problem is you can't allow the jury to be swayed by emotion. They have to look at the facts, and there has to be a certain decorum maintained in that courtroom, no matter how hard it may be to maintain that decorum.
All right, so prosecutors are putting witnesses on, and it appears this is going to be a very dramatic sort of week here. We've got prosecutors pitting some of their own witnesses against each other, let alone two sisters. What's that all about?
This is incredible. I mean, Odin Lloyd's girlfriend, the victim in this case, is sisters with the fiancé of Aaron Hernandez. This is almost unheard of in a murder case.
And this is the link, of course, that prosecutors are making.
And now you're seeing evidence. First of all, Odin Lloyd's ex-girlfriend took the stand and talked about how she was consoled. She saw Aaron Hernandez consoling his fiancé after this happened, and then her sister, his fiancé, disappears down the basement with a mysterious black bag. What's in that bag? We don't know. But when you hear it from a sister, for a jury member, that makes you think, well, what reason would she have to lie? She's talking about her own sister. But then later in this trial, we're most likely going to see Aaron Hernandez's fiancé take the stand, called by prosecution. They've got perjury charges against her. She has not been cooperating so far. They offered her immunity. She said no. So that's going to be a contentious prosecution witness, you better believe. So you're talking about two sisters going against each other, both being in love with their respective men, and both really defending the honor of both of these gentlemen.
And how do you think this could play out when they're cross-examined?
Oh, I think it could be incredibly complicated, but tense in some ways. This is going to be one of those situations, I think, when you see his fiancée testifying, where it's going to seem like you're in Bizarro land. In one way, the prosecution's going to have trouble getting stuff out of her, whereas she's going to seem more like a defense witness, which in many ways helps the defense's case. A lot of times when jurors see a witness on the stand that is clearly sympathetic to the defense, but it's a prosecution witness, the first thing that goes off in their mind is what we see. Well, why is that person on the stand? But they need her because she was there during some of these calls, and her story did not match up with the story of other people. So the prosecution can bring her up, test her knowledge on what she says, and then contradict her with other people to say, look, You know she's not telling the truth, and you know she's doing that because she's with Aaron Hernandez, but that doesn't mean we can't put the two together, and that helps build our circumstantial case.
Very dramatic testimony. And what do you think defense will do in the weeks ahead as this trial wears on?
Their biggest decision is going to be whether to call Aaron Hernandez, and I suspect that they will call him only if they feel like they need that Hail Mary pass, if their case is looking so bad that they have to put him on the stand. If not, I don't think he's going to take the stand. I think the key for them is going to be to poke doubt. The witnesses, what do they really know? How can you really prove he pulled the trigger? The prosecution will say even if somebody else pulled the trigger, Aaron Hernandez was a part of that, so he should still be found guilty of first-degree murder. But they'll say, no, how do we know he was in on this plan? These guys were friends. They're already in cross-examination talking about how he and Lloyd went to picnics together, went to events together, bowled together. These were friends. So if they're friends, how can you explain that all of a sudden one night he snaps and kills this guy? So they're going to keep trying to mount that doubt over and over again, and if you have enough doubt, you could have an acquittal.
All right, a lot of twists and turns, and we're just getting into this. Thanks a lot, ABC's Ryan Smith. Thanks for joining us and updating us. And of course, you can keep up with this story in real time by downloading the ABC News app and starring this story for exclusive updates on the go. For now, I'm Michelle Franzen in New York.